Looks like Dave froze up on us.
I was wondering about that.
Yeah, I think he froze. So, well, I guess we'll get the show started though, Tom, and as we wait for Dave to come back. So, why don't you kick it off, Tom?
All right, will do. Well, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. This is Tom Pollen. Dave Holcomb will be along in a minute. Apparently, his computer froze up, so we're going to get the show started, and we'll get Dave along in a bit. And here is Dave, right
I
here.
made it. Yeah, lots of technical problems this morning with I think I've got a dead mouse on my desktop, and you can't do anything with a dead mouse. You can't even look up to see if there's any battery in the mouse that's
I know.
really dead. So
that's hell. You could borrow one of my cats.
I think that'd be better than this dead mouse.
My cats have brought in a couple of dead mice over their course of their careers. So,
I need a live one. Can they bring?
You need a live one. You need a live mouse. Oh,
yeah,
okay. Yeah. No, they can't do that.
Okay. I gotta call the internet people again. Anybody else out there use Xfinity, especially Xfinity Atlanta users? I don't know what's going on with Xfinity in our area. They tried to blame the construction behind our house going on during the summer. That's done, so that shouldn't be a problem. They tried to blame the size of my house, and I bought an extender and all these like other alternate router things for like $200 on Amazon. That should be set up perfectly. Still not working all that well. So I've got to call them back.
Yeah, you do. That's just ridiculous.
And it's raining on top of that. So, twice as long to go out with the dog when it's raining than when it's not raining. So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's why I got cats. They go and they're done. They're inside. So I don't have to take them out.
Yeah.
Except for the one. She bothers me if she doesn't get to go out at least once a day. So, yeah, not much you can say.
Well, the Falcons played a rain-soaked game last week, and that was a fun one. I was in the stands, as I told you last week. Mm-hmm. Not too much complaining from the family, which was good. And tomorrow's game will not be in the rain, back inside in the dome in Mercedes-Benz. But we're going to react to last week's game against the Commanders. I mean, a game that the Falcons very easily could have won, kind of at the end. And that would have given them another shot at a 500 record this week with that win. And now instead they're kind of looking at just trying to stay alive in the playoff hunt at this point with a win tomorrow against the Steelers going into their bye week. I think if they don't win tomorrow, we're kind of talking about, next season and, Desmond Ridder time. I think we've been kind of hyping up Desmond Ridder time for a while. But I think for sure it's got to become Desmond Ridder time if tomorrow's a loss.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you got no other choice. You lose tomorrow to the Steelers, and that's about it for the season. I know the Buccaneers are struggling, but they are not going to let the Falcons pass them if the Falcons cannot beat the Steelers tomorrow. And it's a frustrating thing because the Falcons should have won that game.
Yeah.
And, again, you got a team that gets cute at the end instead of doing what you do best. And that's running the football. This isn't a great offensive line for pass blocking, but this line does a good job of blocking for on run plays. So you got Tyler Algier. He's yards per carry is 4.6. Cordero Patterson 5.2. These guys know how to block for the run. Why are you getting cute? Why are you trying to throw over the middle on a short pass play to cover 4 yards? You're first down on the 4-yard line. Impose your will on the opponent. Run the ball. This is what you do best. Make them stop you at what you do best. And they refuse to do it. they decide to get cute. And it just drives me nuts when I see teams do that. I don't know what to say. It's frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, the all day too. The Falcons had a great day on the ground, and wasn't like passing had gotten them to that point at the 2-yard line and in a position to take the lead late in the fourth quarter on the road. It was the running game. They came out with an obvious game plan to run the ball a lot in this game after they didn't really do that against the Bears, if I remember correctly, right? It was mostly or at least early on, they were passing a lot. So this was like the exact opposite game plan. Arthur Smith wanted to get back to that bread and butter. It was working really well. They averaged almost 6 yards per carry in this game. And at the end, they decided to try and pass for the game-winning touchdown.
You got two big backs. This is what they do, especially Tyler Algier. This is why you drafted him, because he's big, he's strong, he's gonna get positive yards. And as far as Washington's run defense, Algier was averaging close to a little over 3 yards before contact. So that tells you how good Atlanta's run blocking was, because Algier was going 3 yards before anybody even touched him. And this is what you expect. This is the kind of things you think Arthur Smith will be looking at. I mean, he's watching the game. He's a longtime coach. He should know his offense backwards and forwards. And, all of a sudden he decides, Kyle Pitts isn't on the field. And now you're going to try and go for a short pass, just past the goal line. You got Patterson and Drake London in the same area, which, I don't see that at all, but it's just frustrating because just before that, I saw the Falcons 1st and goal, and I tweeted out, I said, this is time for the big backs. This is time for why you brought these guys in.
Mm-hmm.
And the next thing you know, Mariota's thrown an interception. He's got one deflected, and the ball was deflected, but you shouldn't be throwing it there.
Yeah.
So
and I mean, I'm going to make 2 other points. One actually in defense for Arthur Smith. I mean, if the first play they ran was a running play and they lost 2 yards. So I wonder if that kind of played into Arthur Smith's mind. Not saying that it should have, but I'm just wondering if maybe that was part of it. And the previous play too, they were stopped for no gain on 3rd and 1 when they needed the first down. And the reason why they got the first down was the offsides by Washington. So that could have been like a reason why Smith is thinking, I'm going to pass here. You also have 4 chances to get in the end zone. You need 2 yards, and then you need 4 yards after the loss on 3 plays. You're probably not running 3 runs in a row. So you're probably going to throw it either on 2nd or 3rd if you're not scoring on 2nd. But I think the big thing for me, why it was a error to not run there, other than what you've already said, was Washington had no timeouts left. And with 1:03 left in the game, or maybe it was 1:10 when the play started, 1:03 went after the interception, but about a little more than a minute, you run the ball there and get stopped again, you're running clock off. So Washington doesn't have a chance to come back and get a field goal to win it there. So you kind of have to play the clock as well. Or, if you're scoring on 2nd and goal at the 4 with a run, great, you scored. But if you don't score, worst case scenario, the clock is running. The clock is not running when you attempt to pass and it's incomplete. Actually, the worst case scenario with a pass is what we saw, is an interception.
Well, the hell of it is you're throwing that pass into heavy traffic. You got to get it through the front, past the defensive front, which he wasn't able to do, because he can't put any arc on the ball because, as I say, the play was towards the middle of the end zone, right behind the goal line. If you want to throw something like a fade or an out, or, try and get your receivers matched up one-on-one. This is why you got Drake London, because he's bigger than any defensive back you're going to put on him. Why is he running into the middle of the field in traffic? Try and get him one-on-one in the back of the end zone. Then I can see a pass, because then Mariota has to put a little touch on the ball. He has to get the ball up above the line. He's got no chance of getting the ball above the line where that pass was supposed to go. And it's going to get blocked. Defenders are going to have their arms in the air, and he couldn't get it past them.
Yeah.
So, I suppose my objection isn't necessarily the pass, but the kind of pass that he called, the target for the pass.
Yeah, well, it's kind of the situation that Seattle was in against New England in the Super Bowl. They call that slant pattern, and a lot of people didn't like the decision to pass at all. But then other people also said, if you're going to pass, you throw a fade in the corner.
Right.
Would you have preferred a fade there?
I'm not necessarily a big fan of the fade. But as I say, take your big wide receiver, run him across the back of the end zone, run, and maybe not necessarily a fade, but run him towards the corner and let, more of a corner pattern where he's, straight in and then, cuts over, where he can get off the coverage and actually give Mariota a little bit of area in front of London to target the ball. Whatever you're going to do, keep it out of the middle of the field, because that's where all the traffic is.
Yeah.
That's where everybody was. And Mariota's throwing into it.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not an accurate passer to begin with. So give him a route where he has a chance to succeed. Give him a route with his big wide receiver where you have a chance to maybe, even if it's a 50-50 ball, I'll take Drake London on a 50-50 ball in the back of the end zone.
Mm-hmm.
Odds are. And then you have Zacchaeus. Zacchaeus is leading the team, in receiving right now. He had a hell of a day. And, where was he? You can run a fade with him because he's probably going to beat his defender. You can take the ball and almost instantaneously toss it up towards the corner. Zacchaeus is going to get there. And that's the kind of thing that I look at and say, you're not taking advantage of the strength of the receivers that you have to try and do something down on the end zone. You got London's not, going towards the back of the end zone. He's got Cordero Patterson just past the, goal line, and that's who he was trying to hit. But again, Cordero Patterson, this is one of your tallest receivers in the league. You can put him in a lot of different routes. Try and single him up on a defensive back, and odds are you're going to be successful. You got these big receivers for a reason. Use them for that reason. Single them up on defensive backs. Mm-hmm. They have the bigger catch radius. So I had problems with the play. And again, the fact that the Falcons were running the ball so effectively, it's a rainy situation. The ball is wet anyway.
Yeah.
So,
and again, that was their game plan all day was to run,
right?
Not have it in Mariota's hands. And then the biggest play of the game, they elect to pass.
Yeah, they put it in Mariota's hands.
Yeah,
and they paid for it.
Yeah. And it's a big loss in the standings. We talked about that last week, how big of a matchup that was for the NFC wildcard position. The Commanders slid ahead of the Seahawks now, who are in the 8th spot in the NFC. And I believe just double checking here. Yeah, the Falcons are in the 9th spot for the overall conference. So they're 2 spots out the wild card, which I don't even know if that's worth discussing whether or not they can be a wild card team, because they're 2 games back of Washington, and they don't have the tiebreaker with Washington now. So,
well, that's the problem. Is that you're technically 3 games back now,
right? And there's
because
only 5
you don't have that tiebreaker.
5 games left for the Falcons too, because of the bye week. So not a lot of time to make up that 3 games. Essentially 3 games in the standings. So their only chance really of making the playoffs is to win the NFC South.
Yeah, it is. Right now, that's all you got. And you still got to play the Baltimore Ravens, and you still got to play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the end. So you can put yourself in a position at the end to maybe do something against the Buccaneers. That is it.
It's a good thing that game's still left with Tampa Bay, because you can make up ground in 2 ways. You know, Tampa Bay loses and you win, and you can, I don't know how the tiebreaker situation would be if Atlanta wins that game. They're 1-1 against each other. I guess the tiebreaker is division record, which Atlanta doesn't have that division record. They have to beat the Saints, beat Tampa Bay, and that would be 3-3 in the division. So we'll see how Tampa Bay finishes up in the NFC South. But looking ahead to tomorrow's matchup, it's a must-win, really, I think it's a must-win for Mariota to keep his job. It's a must-win for the Falcons to stay alive in the NFC South. Gary sent us a question about the betting line. How do you feel about these betting odds being just about even between the 2 teams? I think that's fitting, I guess. I think the Steelers are coming off their best game of the season, and I don't want to hype them too much because they were playing a bad Colts team.
Yes.
And I think the concern I would have for the Steelers is they were playing a really bad offensive line, and they really didn't get much of a pass rush. TJ Watt was not a factor against the Colts like I thought he would be. And I think for the Steelers to have a clear advantage tomorrow, TJ Watt has to be TJ Watt. And if he's not, then I think this is a pretty even matchup, and maybe even in favor of the Falcons. If they're able to block up the Steelers' offensive line. But I saw an interesting stat on Twitter, and I was trying to find it right before the show. And how often does that happen to you, where you see something interesting on Twitter and then you want to find it again hours later and you can't find it?
All the time. Yeah, it's constant. It's frustrating.
The Steelers and Falcons are one of a handful of teams, maybe as many as 7. I don't have the exact number. I couldn't find the tweet. But there's about a handful of teams in the NFL that have not had a 3-possession lead at any point this season. And the Steelers are one of those teams, and the Falcons are the other. So going up against each other, I do not see any scenario where this isn't, much closer than 17 points. I don't think anybody's jumping out to a 17-0 lead or anything like that. And I think this is going to be a 1-possession game either way.
So do I. And I think the spread reflects that. The spread, again, is basically what is reflected by what the public is thinking. Sports books adjust their spreads by what the public is thinking. And it's a tough one. I got some, let's see, edge plays. Yeah. So it's I think it's a very I think it's a fair line. It's a tough game to call. It depends on who can run the ball better. Does Najee Harris? He's coming back. He's supposedly not is healthy this week, so you got to see what Najee Harris can do against a Falcons line that's had a tough time against the run the last couple of weeks. So, and that was one of the Falcons' strengths, was against the run. They still cannot do much against the pass. It's been a bad season for the Falcons against the pass. Rushing the quarterback, and their secondary just has not played well. So I think it's a good line because I think it's a back and forth game. It's a tough game to call.
Well, Benny Snell and Anthony McFarland, right off the practice squad for him, they both average 5 yards per carry against the Colts, who are a pretty decent run defense, at least have been throughout the season when everybody's healthy. Not everyone was healthy Monday, but
yeah.
So that could be a concern for Atlanta, even if Najee Harris isn't 100%. Pittsburgh was able to run without him in the lineup. And you got to stop Pickett as well. Pickett has been involved a little bit in the running game.
Yep. And he's actually been very successful with George Pickens as his wide receiver. And I'll go into that a little bit later as far as Pickens when we do our player props.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So he and Pickens seem to have picked up a nice little rapport there that, they've kind of got a good thought about what the other's going to do during a play, and they adjust to each other very well.
Yeah, I like what I've seen from George Pickens. I think he's going to be a star. I think he's going to be really good. And Kenny Pickett has shown promise. It doesn't mean that he won't necessarily continue to build every single week off of what he does. I think he's coming off his best game against the Colts. That's probably a concern for Falcons fans because of how poorly their defense has played against the pass. But, he's learning in real time.
Yeah.
The example that I loved, I found on Twitter was there was a play where in the first half where he threw it out to the flat to a running back running in the flat, and the safety drove on that play and tackled him for a 1 yard loss. And Troy Aikman explained that pass has to go to the wide receiver that's running the slant. It was as if Kenny Pickett at halftime watched Troy Aikman's analysis, because they ran the same play on the other side of the field later in the game, and Pickett hits Deontay Johnson on the slant for a 9 yard gain.
Right.
So that really, I think, showed me a lot about Pickett and his ability to learn quickly and how he's progressing. And he didn't have great stats against the Colts Monday night, but
no, he hasn't had great stats. But a lot of quarterbacks who are winning who haven't had great stats this year. So I mean, it's what you're doing with your overall offense. How's he leading that offense?
Yeah.
So he's got some good receivers to play with.
That throw to Pickens on 3rd and 9 for a 13-yard gain when the game seemed to be spiraling out of control for the Steelers, and Pickett was like, "I've got this." 3rd down conversion at the beginning of the 4th quarter. It felt like Pickett won the game with those type of plays, as opposed to just being a passenger,
right,
coasting to a 16-0, 20-0 or 20-7 if Colts had just scored once kind of lead. I mean, they coughed up the lead, and Pickett was unfazed and led them down the field for a touchdown. The defense finished it, but I thought it was a big step for Pickett, and I'll be at the game tomorrow. I'll get to see Pickett in his rookie season. I hope he plays for the Steelers for a long time, and I can say that I saw him as a rookie. And I think it'll be a fun game tomorrow.
Yeah, so do I. I think it's going to be a tight game. It's going to go back and forth. It's a game the Falcons should win at home. But, I love that out of a rookie quarterback. Unfazed. Somebody who doesn't show all the panic, doesn't show the worried, who seems to be keeping his head on the sidelines, keeping his head after a bad play.
Yeah.
And doesn't let that worry him. Lets the bad play go. Okay, you're going to make him. Put it behind you and move on with the football game. And I like that out of a young quarterback, and I like that out of Pickett, because he shows that kind of calm, that kind of reserve where he can do that. He's got his eye on the next play,
Yeah.
And that's what you want to see out of a rookie quarterback. More than stats, that's what you want to see out of rookie quarterback.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Especially when it's pretty apparent the team's not going anywhere.
Right.
They're not fighting for a playoff spot. You just want to see that improvement week in and week out. And sometimes it's hard for fans to see tangible improvement, but it was very obvious with that set of plays in the Monday night game with
Right.
Pickett. So it's kind of fitting in a way.
Is this the first season that Tomlin is not going to have a 500 record at the end?
It will be, yeah, if he doesn't finish with 9 wins, yeah.
Okay, that's kind of what I thought. Yeah, I don't think he's going to get there this year, but I think he's got some promise. He's got some guys that I think the Steelers can build around.
Yeah, and I don't want to pour salt in an open wound. Maybe if I don't know if it's an open wound, maybe it's a closed wound. But they've got 3 pretty high picks with the Chase Claypool trade. So, I mean, they can address some needs pretty quickly there, and already have some pieces to build around. So, yeah. I think there are promising days ahead for the Steelers with Pickett. And I was just about to say, I think it's kind of, I don't know, fitting, if fitting is the right word, ironic that, there's so much talk about Justin Fields coming to Atlanta a couple weeks ago, and that was a quarterback that the Falcons passed on. And, they passed on Pickett as well. Not that, we're clamoring for them to pick Pickett at number 8, like people were saying they should pick Fields at number 4 a few years ago. But it is a quarterback that they passed on. And they have yet to solve that position, yet to even see what they have in Desmond Ridder yet. So
right.
That's kind of interesting storyline as well. That is a factor tomorrow. And I wish it was Pickett versus Ridder tomorrow. I think that would be kind of exciting.
It would.
We'll see.
Bring a lot more national interest to this game.
Yeah. But we'll have Mariota at least one more week. And as I said, the Falcons are on a really late bye in week 14. And then depending on what they do tomorrow, I think that's going to determine the quarterback situation in the final 4 weeks.
Well, see, what gets me about, the mini bye going into the Bears game, and I said it before, you were set up with a terrible defense that you could run Ridder against.
Yeah. And
really give Ridder some confidence, because the Bears defense is nothing this year after trading Roquan Smith.
Yeah.
The Bears defense is kind of back at square one. They're looking for leaders. They might have found one in Jack Sanborn, linebacker. But other than that, the Bears are looking for leaders. They're rudderless on defense. You could have started Desmond Ridder against the Bears and gotten a good look at him and maybe built some confidence with him. And they missed that opportunity. But at some point, Mariota is just too slow to make decisions. He doesn't know where he's going with the ball half the time. Yeah. And when he does see a receiver, normally it's too late. You got to hit a receiver out of his break. You can't wait till the receiver breaks, see that he's open, and then try and deliver the ball, because you got other defensive backs who are reacting, are going to be converging on that spot. You got to know what you're looking at. I don't think he's any good at reading defenses. I don't think he's gotten any better at reading defenses. He's slow with the ball. He's slow with his release. And, I mean, we're in week 13, and we already know this. So why are we waiting?
Well, I think I can answer that question. I think Arthur Smith just thinks Mariota gives him a better chance to win now than Ridder. And I don't think that should be the ultimate goal of the franchise, though, to win now. Because what's going to end up happening is you're going to finish, I think, best case 7-10. I don't know if they even have 3 more wins on the schedule, though. But you're going to finish borderline top 10 pick. And if it really goes badly with Mariota, then you're going to have a top 8 pick again.
Right.
And then everyone's going to be asking, well, are you going to take a quarterback? You're going to take a quarterback. And there's a much deeper quarterback class.
Yes,
there really
it is.
might be a quarterback that you're interested in. But then the third round pick you had last year with Ritter was a waste. And that was my whole argument last year of, what I thought about Ritter was you don't want this to end up being a pick that's wasted because the team ends up being bad or a top 10 pick again. And you don't put Ritter in until the end of the season. So you have a small sample size to figure out what he is. And then you're in a situation where you could take another quarterback and you have to make that really hard decision. That is becoming a real possibility. And that I don't think that's good at all.
No, because you have a lot of other areas on this team that you need to upgrade.
Right.
Now you're going to have a ton of cap space next year to do some work in free agency.
That's true. But you still don't want to waste a third round pick if you're going to end up taking a quarterback this year.
Because you can build depth in the third round. You can build depth at linebacker. You can build depth at offensive line. You can find quality Pro Bowl. You can find plenty of Pro Bowl players who have been drafted third and fourth on the offensive line. You can find quality there with that position. You can find quality at linebacker in the third round. All right, there are places you can find actual depth, actual assets to your team in the third round. Now, you use that to try and bring in a quarterback because this team needs another franchise quarterback. So you roll the dice on Ritter, but you're not doing anything to see if he is the man. Mariota's not the man. Yeah. And I think we both said this at the beginning of the season. This is a 1 year and out for Mariota. All right.
Well, and getting back to my Ritter point, I think too many people looked at it as, well, it's a flyer. It's a flyer pick. For a quarterback, it is. It is a flyer pick, but you don't want to use a third round pick on a flyer.
No.
A third round pick, as you just, pointed out.
Right.
You can get a quality player with a third round pick. A real flyer is something that's
a third day pick.
Yeah, a late pick where the probability of getting if you take a safe pick, a safe player, the probability of him becoming good is much lower than like a third round pick.
Right. Exactly. If you wanted to take Ritter in the fourth or fifth round, all right, then I'm a little bit more on board with that. But you're taking him in the third round. You better figure out if he can do it or not.
Yeah.
And as I say, if he doesn't, then you've lost the chance to get a building block onto this team heading into 2023.
I have my Love Loathe segment again, and we already did number one, which was the pass that the Falcons did at the 4-yard line at the end of the game last week against the Commanders. But before I continue with that segment,
what do you think?
I do want to mention our sponsor. We didn't mention that at the top of the show. Today's show brought to you by Prize Picks. Download the app in your app store. When you do, use our promo code ASU. That gets you a 100% match on your first deposit up to $100. So free money. And then a little bit later on in our show, we'll have some picks for week 13 where hopefully you can get more free money with the money you got for free using our promo code.
Boy, I got some good picks for you. So get that promo, get that money, because you're going to wail on it. You're going to enjoy some profits this week. So
good.
Absolutely.
Good. Well, we'll get to that a little bit later. We also have your picks against the spread. I've got two more things that I loathed from week 12. I went all loved last week, so I'm going all hate this week to change it up. And so going back to that Monday night game with the Steelers, but from the Colts perspective, how bad was that clock management from Jeff Saturday?
Awful.
Terrible.
But that's what you expect a guy who has never coached. It's different when you're coaching it than when you're actually out in the field playing it. And I think he's finding that out.
Well, and it's different being out on the sideline versus, criticizing a coach from the studio in ESPN. So
exactly. You're on the field and that decision comes down to you. And there's a lot more pressure on it than I think Saturday really expected, because he came out later in the week and said, I should have I should have called that timeout.
Yeah, he did. He didn't say it immediately after the game, but the next day he regretted not calling a timeout. And, I don't think we can completely not blame Matt Ryan either and the rest of the coaching staff for the Colts. Matt Ryan runs for 14 yards, and then his head coach doesn't call a timeout. You're a 37-year-old quarterback who wasn't mobile when he was 23. Aren't you getting up and saying, boy, I'm really tired. Timeout. Like, he could call too. We all were blaming Jeff Saturday all week, and I think rightfully so, but I think it falls on Matt Ryan as well. Matt Ryan could have called a timeout. Mark Frazier, the offensive coordinator, can tell Jeff Saturday. He can't actually call the timeout, but he can tell.
And Frazier's a guy who should know. He's been a head coach.
Parks Frazier?
Oh, no, I'm talking. I've got my head mixed up again.
Yeah.
Hey,
but there are other.
I got to do that once a week, Dave.
But there are other head coaches on the staff too. Like John Fox is there. I know he's like a defensive assistant or whatever, special assistant to the defense.
Still been in the spot.
But he can he tell Jeff Saturday, hey, we need a timeout here?
Sure.
So I think it falls on everybody. Obviously, all mistakes go back to the head coach taking most of the responsibility. Mm-hmm. But that was a situation, maybe not for the clock, but Matt Ryan just ran for 14 yards.
Yeah.
3 yards short of the first down. They had a play call that was not set up correctly. Jeff Saturday was like, well, it was execution. No, it wasn't. You had your rookie tight end, Jelani Woods, trying to block Alex Highsmith. That's not execution when he doesn't get the block because you're not putting him in the best situation to succeed. That's the play call.
And Dave, that's the key to being a head coach, putting your players in a position to succeed. You just nailed it right there. That's what Jeff Saturday did not do. And that's the problem with having a guy who's not been a coach at any level in the NFL and having him take over this team. Yeah, he worked with Peyton Manning for years. But he was looking upside down at Peyton Manning. So, I mean.
Well, there's been a lot of clamoring that Peyton Manning is going to be the next GM for the Colts. Could he be a head coach? Blah, blah, blah. But, I mean, John Lynch came in from the broadcast booth and actually has done pretty well as a GM. But I don't think that should be the normal hiring process for your GM. I don't, as smart as Peyton Manning is and as great as he is at everything he's ever done really in his life, I don't think should be a top candidate for a GM for the Colts, bringing him up. But anyway, yeah, I just thought Saturday's clock management was really poor. He makes my loathe list. And the other one, back to the Falcons game, they were honoring Sean Taylor on Sunday. It was the 15th anniversary of his murder.
Oh,
and they unveiled I don't know even what you call it, a uniform. It wasn't a statue. Did you see this, Tom?
No, I didn't.
So they unveiled it looked like a mannequin, I guess. And it's Sean Taylor's, it's his jersey, the pants he wore. I guess I forget if it was the Redskins helmet or probably just a modern day Commander's helmet. And it's in one of the end zones in the stands. And I didn't really think much of it at the time, but the Washington Post really ripped apart the honoring the memorial for Sean Taylor. And I kind of agreed with the columnist. Didn't think about it at the time that day. But looking back, it just was like, why doesn't he get a normal statue? It feels a little bit like, well, did you put the uniform together because it's another sponsorship thing because he's wearing a Nike uniform? He also had, I think, Reebok shoes or Reebok pants or something, which didn't make sense that, well, why is it Nike and Reebok? But it's like, are you getting paid by both these sponsors for this memorial? It missed the mark. And I was reading more about it, and apparently they missed the mark last year when they tried to honor Sean Taylor last season. So maybe third time's the charm if they try to do it again next year. But why not just give the guy a statue? outside the stadium.
I agree.
Why is it this like weird mannequin thing inside the place?
You're trying to do stuff on the cheap. Give the man a statue. It was a tragic, just tragic situation, and I feel for Washington fans for what happened. I wrote about it once back in Football Nation days.
Yeah,
wrote about it, and it's a terrible thing. But that's Daniel Snyder trying to do it on the cheap.
That probably is what it is.
Give the man a true memorial.
Because I think the article I read in Washington Post mentioned that, well, they're hoping, maybe not even planning yet, but they're hoping to start planning a new stadium. And quite frankly, I think I don't want to say they need a new stadium, but it wasn't a particularly nice place. So they could probably use a new stadium. And if they get one in the next 5 years, they don't want to have to transport the statue. But statues are moved and picked up and put
They're
down.
repositioned all the time.
All the time. The statues are moved. So that's probably a case of, Daniel Snyder doesn't want to pay to have a statue.
Right.
But it's easier to move this mannequin thing.
Yeah. That's just, as I say, that's doing it on the cheap. Give the man a statue showing him at his best. And, this is one of the guys who was the core of your team, cut down tragically long before, his time, and do right by him. And, other players notice this stuff. That's the thing. They notice this stuff. So, you're not doing yourself any favors by taking this on the cheap.
Yeah. Yeah. And Washington has gone from, I would say, a very proud organization in the early to mid 90s to when Daniel Snyder took it over the last 20, 25 years. He's just ruined the Washington football brand.
Yeah. Kent Cook did his best with that team, kind of, did a lot as far as bringing that team back into prominence in the NFL.
Yeah.
And it's falling back off.
Right. And you can tell being at a game there, like they had a lot of passionate fans. They were very excited after the win against the Falcons last week. But
it's one of the most passionate fan bases in football.
Yeah.
I mean, they've been around since the 1930s.
Right.
Well, I mean, that team has existed for a long time. It is a passionate fan base.
Yeah. Yeah, and they deserve better. They deserve better from their owner, not just going on the cheap with a lot of stuff. But
right.
So that's the Love Load segment this week. Let's get to your picks against the spread.
All right, picks against the spread. Nostradamus has got to hit it this week. 1-2 last week. It was a little rough. Wasn't feeling good about last week. We got the Ravens -9.5 hosting the Broncos. And, I know the Ravens disappointed last week, but the Broncos have been disappointed. Yeah. Broncos have been a disappointment all year. Yeah, I rode the Ravens last week, and I rode the, to my regret. But the Broncos, I don't know what's going on with that team. Nathaniel Hackett has just lost all control of that team. Russell Wilson has never gained control, never gained the confidence of his guys on offense. And I think it's a mess in Denver right now. The Texans, this is the one that's really going to be fun. Texans +7 against the Cleveland Browns with Deshaun Watson at quarterback.
Right. Yeah.
He's coming back against his old team. I don't know if the Texans are going to win this game because Cleveland has, even though I think Deshaun Watson is going to suck big time. This is a guy who didn't play for 2 years, played some of the preseason, and is now expected to take the control of the Browns and guide them to the playoffs. No.
I don't understand from the media why there's been so much. I think there's maybe hype is too strong of a word, but I think a lot of people have been writing about, well, Deshaun Watson's coming back. Deshaun Watson's coming back.
Right.
We have no guarantee whatsoever he's going to be any better than Jacoby Brissett. He might be worse.
Might be worse. Exactly. You still got Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb is going to run effectively.
And he's still got the most run defense in the league.
So, and the Texans are going to run Pierce, all day. This is another game where when I was growing up, pitchers used to, in baseball, they never used to mess around on the mound. They went out, did their business, threw the ball. You could have Ferguson Jenkins against Bob Gibson, and the game would be locked up. It'd be like a 1-0, 2-1 game, and would be finished in about 2 hours.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is what this game is going to be, because you're going to have both teams are going to be running the ball.
Yeah.
I think the Browns are better at it. I think the Texans have been looking forward to this game, though. So take the Texans plus the 7. I think it's going to be a tight game. This is not going to hinge on Deshaun Watson, whether or not he wins this game for Cleveland. Titans are hosting the Philadelphia Eagles. They are plus 5. Titans will sneak up on you. This is a team that plays very well. And, yeah, he had a rough week last week.
Yeah.
Okay? I get that. But, again, don't react to everything that happened last week. You never want to do that. The Eagles are riding on a high. But, see, they're plus 5. They started out plus 6.5. But the Sharps got control of that game, said, no way, they're winning by 6.5. And Sharps, I mean professional bettors. So they chewed off a piece of the spread and knocked it down to 5. I still don't think they're covering the 5. So take the Titans and take Derrick Henry and take what these guys do very quietly. What they do very quietly is win games. Mike Vrabel might be one of the best head coaches in the National Football League. Plus, I got a fourth one for you in case you want.
Okay.
One. Seahawks favored by 7.5 against the Rams.
Yeah.
Aaron Donald is going to miss the first game of his career this week.
Right. Yeah.
Cooper Kupp is out.
Yep.
Matt Stafford is injured.
Yep.
Seattle is playing like they expect. They hit the field like they expect to win. They're not playing to try not to lose. They hit the field behind Geno Smith, expecting to win every week. So I like the 7.5 Seattle over Los Angeles.
I like that too. Yeah. Can we even call them the Rams when they're missing all those guys? It might be down to their third string quarterback, which they were last week against the Chiefs.
It was even with all those guys. This is a team that struggled all year.
That's true.
Where is this Super Bowl team that kind of pushed its way through the playoffs and over the Bengals? Where is this Matthew Stafford kind of comeback tour? He got 1 year of it. And that's it. That's all he's had. That's all he's given the Rams. And this is a team that's falling apart. They got the same record as the Bears. Come on. Yeah. 3-8.
And what? They have the number 3 pick right now, and it's going to Detroit. So
yes, it sure is.
Yeah.
You gotta love that.
Well, I think it's a accumulation of they haven't had a draft pick in the first 2 rounds in how many years? And they haven't had enough money to sign free agent offensive linemen either. That's the other big factor that I don't think it's talked enough about. They let their offensive line deteriorate because they wanted to keep the big stars. And the big stars did win them the Super Bowl, but they also had a competent offensive line.
Yeah.
And Whitworth retires, and another, Austin, I think it was Austin Blythe, left in free agency. So you lose 2 starters on your offensive line, and you have a poor offensive line play. That's across the board. A lot of teams that we thought were going to be good that aren't. The Rams, the Colts, the Packers. It almost always comes back to, well, how good is the offensive line?
Right.
The offensive line is struggling. It's bad. So the team is bad. The team can't score. Even Denver. You mentioned Denver being a mess. Yeah, Nathaniel Hackett can't coach. Russell Wilson suddenly can't throw. But they have a bad offensive line too. Yeah. So there's a lot of problems in Denver.
I mean, Falcons fans, you know what an offensive line looks like. You know what bad offensive line play will do to a team.
Right.
You know, that, and as I say, I'm an old timer. Yeah, I admit it. You know, Dave's a young guy. But I think Dave is an old timer kind of in mind too. And, you know, before everybody's time, and I know nobody knows this name anymore, Jim Finks built the Super Bowl early 70s Minnesota Vikings team, built that Super Bowl 20 winning Bears team, built the Saints to the point where they made their first postseason appearance in history. How did he do it? He builds from the inside out.
Yeah.
All right. He starts with your line play on defense, on offense. The Vikings of their time had one of the best offensive lines in the league. The Bears had one of the best offensive lines during their glory days. You know, you can do so much on offense if you have an offensive line. And it makes the biggest difference in the world. Jim Finks, he had no problem. He drafted Jimbo Covert, a left tackle, at number 5 in the draft. He had no problem with that because Covert was quality. He needed a left tackle. He considered left tackle the most important spot on the line, and he got the best player in Covert's Hall of Famer. So, you know, you got to draft. You cannot ignore your offensive line, whether it's through free agency or the draft. And it's better if you draft because it is difficult, almost impossible, to find quality offensive linemen in free agency. Because if a team has one, they're going to hang on to it. So you better be able to draft them. And don't ignore it. Yeah, you know, the Rams gave up all these draft picks. They won a Super Bowl because of it, but they are also bad now because of it.
Yes, that's absolutely true. And I think the other point I would make about offensive line is you're only as good on the offensive line as your weakest link. You know, it's not like wide receiver where you can get away with only 2 good wide receivers.
Right.
Even one great wide receiver.
Yeah.
You can feed him the ball and he can carry your offense.
And look at last year. I mean, Devontae Adams. That's all Aaron Rodgers had to throw to, and it worked to the playoffs. Well. It worked.
Yeah, it worked very well. But
guess what? The Packers also had an offensive line that was healthy. They don't have an offensive line that's healthy this year. Bakhtiari just had an appendix operation.
Yes.
And Elton Jenkins is still hurt. So there's your 2 tackles that, you know, you can take advantage of.
But you take those 2 guys off and your offensive line, even if you have 3 pretty good guys still left from that line last year, the line's not the same. The unit is not the same without those guys. And I think the example of the Colts, a team I've covered closely this year, watched closely this year, they thought that they were fine because they had a Pro Bowler at center, left guard, and right tackle. Well, who do you have at left tackle, which is arguably the most important position on the offensive line? Well, we have this journeyman, Matt Pryor, who played well in 3 games last year. And then we drafted a rookie in the 3rd round from Austria, who's just a big project. Those were the 2 tackles they went into the season with. And surprise, surprise, the left tackle position is this big problem. And so is the offensive line, even though you have 3 of the most expensive offensive linemen at 3 other positions.
Right.
Those guys aren't going to make up for the turnstile that left tackle is.
Right.
The blind side of Matt Ryan. So the line overall is bad, even though you got all this money going into the other positions, because you can't just have 2 good offensive linemen. No. You have to have the whole unit playing well as a unit. So anyway, that's our rant for offensive line. And I wanted to mention, you talking about the Broncos, you don't know what's going on there. I mean, it's gotten so bad that there are articles being written about whether or not Russell Wilson will get cut. And if he's cut, he's $107 million cap hit. $107 million dead money for the Broncos if they decide to cut Russell Wilson. Now, I don't think there's a chance in hell that happens.
No, they won't do that. They'll try another head coach first.
I just think it's bad enough that the articles can be written, and that says something. They also removed the Broncos and Chiefs from Sunday Night Football next week.
Yeah.
You never take Patrick Mahomes out of prime time. Well, if he's going up against the Broncos and Russell Wilson, go ahead. Yeah, we don't want that game.
Before the season, that looked like a highlight game. Now you just don't want Russell Wilson in prime time. Yeah, even though you're not going to have Patrick Mahomes, Russell Wilson in prime time. It's amazing. It's fun how that it's interesting how that happens. But no, they won't cut Russell Wilson. Nathaniel Hackett is gone.
Yeah,
all right, he's done. He's one and out.
I hate the one and done coaches, but there's exceptions, and Nathaniel Hackett should and will be an exception to the rule, if you want to call it a rule, of not giving your coach more than one season. But yeah, he's definitely done. We only have a few more minutes left in the show, though, Tom. Let's get to our prize picks. It sounds like you're more confident in your picks than I am. So maybe we'll go to you first. I wanted to go with Russell Wilson again with the over on pass attempts because I hit gold there 2 weeks in a row, and prize picks was on to me. Russell Wilson is not available for the pass attempts. So they caught on to my strategy.
Catch on to you. Yeah.
I do have three other players, but let's get to your three players.
All right. George Pickens, plus 46.5 yards against the Falcons. Guys, Pickens, the Falcons' pass defense has been rough. A.J. Terrell has had a rough third season, and he's going to be the guy who's going to try and cover Pickens. I think the Pickett to Pickens combination is going to generate more than 46.5 pass yards. Alameda Zacchaeus, plus 28.5 passing yards. Zacchaeus has become a very reliable target for Marcus Mariota. And without Kyle Pitts out there, I think Zacchaeus sees more attempts, gets more targets. So I like him at 28.5 receiving yards. Deshaun Watson. 247.5 passing yards. I'll bet on the side that he doesn't even get half that.
Wow. Okay.
Play under on Deshaun Watson this week. I have no faith in Deshaun Watson coming back and playing any kind of big-time football his first game back.
I agree with you, but not even. He's not even going to get 120 passing yards.
I'll be shocked.
Right?
I will be shocked.
Really? Okay. The way Kevin Stefanski likes to throw, he should run Nick Chubb every play.
He should not run Nick Chubb every play this week. He really should.
He should, but I don't know if he's going to. Actually,
he's not going to.
Not going to.
He's going to be a fool. He's not going to.
Yeah.
But is Deshaun Watson even going to be on target? The guy's been out for 11 games. He was out for 2 years. Yeah. This guy, he's got to show me something first.
Okay.
But Deshaun, show me something. But right now, I'm fading you. You are not hitting anywhere near that.
Well, I also have Olamide Zacchaeus, but I went with his receptions. 2 receptions. I'm going over. You kind of have me doubting myself though, because he's more of a big play guy. He could go over that receiving total on one play and not have another target or catch the rest of the game. But I do think he's been a little bit more involved. He was involved a lot last week, so I think he will get enough opportunities to make 3 catches.
He's more involved, and they're going to need him this week to take up the slack from not having Kyle Pitts.
Right. So I think he'll be over the 2 reception mark that Prize Picks has. Brian Robinson had a nice breakout game last week.
Yes, he did.
Going with him over 63.5 rushing yards against the New York Giants. The Giants are 24th, I believe. It was 23rd or 24th when I looked this morning in rushing yards allowed this season. So I think Robinson is going to be the lead back again, and he's going to be 70 plus rushing yards. And I'm going to the old Falcons quarterback, Matt Ryan, for my last one, 32.5 pass attempts. I like that category, pass attempts. I've had some success in that one. So he's at 32.5. Jonathan Taylor has been getting more touches with Jeff Saturday as head coach, but I think the Colts are going to fall behind big time in this game against the Cowboys. The NFL is shooting themselves in the foot by having the Colts in primetime 2 weeks in a row. I guess they couldn't find a better flex out option for Sunday Night Football this week. I don't mind that the Colts are in primetime again, because going to the Steelers game, Tom, I've got time to drive home and then cover the Colts at night. So it works out great for me. The rest of the country, probably not so much, because I think the Cowboys are going to be ahead in this game from the gun, and Matt Ryan is going to have to pass for them to be competitive. He'll be at 33 pass attempts or more.
I like it. Sounds great. I think if all of you, if you sign up for Prize Picks this week, use the promo code ASU for Atlanta Sports Unlimited, and you get that extra, they will match you up to your initial $100 deposit. Use that money, because there are some good plays this week.
Yeah.
So I think we found some for you. So tell us what you did next week. Tell us how you did.
And even a couple plays from the Falcons-Steelers matchup. So if you're at the game or watching the game because you're a Falcons fan, a little extra excitement in the game, rooting for some individual players to hit some individual stats.
Absolutely. There's some possibilities. I like 2 players in that Falcons Pittsburgh game. So let's do it.
Well, thanks for tuning in this week, everybody. We'll be back next Saturday at noon Eastern time.
Have a great week, everyone.